Welcome to Stevie's Kitchen. Tonight, I'm gonna show you how to make spicy beef stir fry. So now let's just get started on our vegetables first. We're gonna start with our onions, and we're just gonna get a nice, my normal style dice on these onions. Long ways first, one cut down the middle. Now we're just slicing, cutting down into little confetti pieces. So next we're gonna get this bell pepper cut. You remember my bell pepper hack? Slice down all the sides, and then we'll be able to open this up like a flower. It's one of these things where repetition is key at learning how to do this. Kind of just like being on the football field for me back in the day. I know there's probably a lot of y'all who say you don't like cooking because it takes forever. And to that, I tell everybody, it just takes more reps. And getting good at anything requires reps. Just like it did for me in football. Football, you want all the reps. It's be kind of like, I remember one day at practice, when I first got to the New York Giants, it was my third year in the league. Nobody really knew who I was when I got there. I was just an athletic guy who, they were like, we can look for some extra safety help. And then I remember one practice in particular, I was second string defense, so I was given the look for the offense. And then I turn around and have to do a few reps with the ones on certain packages. Then I had to turn around and go out and go to special teams, take all the reps there because I was starting on all four special teams, and then come back and we had another team period where I'd have to do, show the offense the reps again as well for the defense, give that look, and then turn around and take my own defensive reps. And I remember Prince Amukamara looks at me and goes, "How do you have all this energy, Stevie? And to take all these reps." I looked at him, I said, "Prince, I'm not a first round pick like you, man." I was like, "I'm a 7th round pick. I have no choice but to have energy and take reps." But the benefit of that was taking all these reps, just like I'm talking about when it comes to cooking and speeds everything up. Whenever it was my time was called to go into a game, Kenny Phillips gets hurt against Philly, week 7, I think it was. Since I had all these reps and taken all these reps and did all these things in practice all the time, I was ready to go. Stepped in and became a starter for the rest of the year. Ended up leading the Giants in interceptions, still have the Giants single season record for most interception yards returned. Actually, fun fact, I am 4th all time in a single season for most interception return yards. And I attribute all that to reps. So just like cooking, make sure you stay your reps, do all your reps, because they will prove to be worthwhile in the end. So now that we have our bell pepper chopped, let's get onto our carrot. So with this carrot, I'm gonna just cut it in half, rotate each side so I can cut it down, because I want flat surfaces when I cut. So now that we got this, we're gonna do little kind of match stick cuts. So Stevie's Kitchen kind of grew organically. That's something I can say. I grew up in a household, my parents got divorced when I was probably like 12. I don't say that to get boo-hoos, but I stayed living with my dad, who didn't know how to cook anything that didn't involve ground beef. So beef stroganoff, cheesy beef stroganoff, tacos, burgers, spaghetti, meatloaf. That was like the gist of what I got to eat as a kid. And then my dad started going to my grandparents' house and picking up their leftovers when he didn't feel like cooking, which happened to be like probably 4 days a week. So I grew up eating a lot of leftovers, a lot of ground beef dishes. And I kind of told myself at 12, 13 years old, I wasn't gonna be like my dad. I was gonna know how to cook. So I could actually eat some good food. And from that point forward, I started working with food myself. Everything I do is self-taught. I started off with freezer bag meals, just kind of figuring out how to make freezer bag meals into food. And then I go off to college, and don't get me wrong, even though my dad did bring me my grandparents' leftovers all the time, like my grandma was a good cook. But then I transferred into football, transitioned into football, I should say. And with my grandma being from Owensboro, Kentucky, there wasn't a lot of healthy dishes she made. And that wasn't going to work for me playing football. So then I started trying to figure out how to make the dishes that she would cook for me healthier. And that's basically how Stevie's Kitchen started. And then once I kind of figured out how to do those a little bit healthier, then I just started playing with everything, kind of teaching myself the basics, trying to recreate the unhealthy meals she made, still make them unhealthy, and see if I could maybe improve on them. Can never quite duplicate what your grandpa does. That is blasphemy, I should say, if you think you're gonna make grandma's food. So I had to make my own version of it. I didn't want that smoke. And learning how to make some of her basics healthier, then learning how to make some of her basics my own, is really where Stevie's Kitchen came from. And now here we are today. I'm just trying everything. Making as much as I can, still trying to make things healthy to keep myself in shape, learning new things so I can one day share with my son and share with y'all. So this is Stevie's Kitchen. Right now, just getting some garlic diced up for the stir fry. Last thing I'm gonna do is get my jalapeno diced up. And then whenever I get the jalapeno diced up, I'm gonna leave the stems and the seeds in just because that's where you'll get more of the heat. And the jalapenos that I have here, it's not that it's a special jalapeno or anything like that, but one of my coworkers has a garden and she grew jalapenos in her garden. This is my homegrown jalapeno that I'm about to work with. Now after we have all our veggies chopped, I got my beef round from my favorite farm, G Farms online, look them up. So I'm just gonna cut these out into strips, again, cut this little fat piece off. And then so with this, to kind of make this a little bit tender, because this round cut is just a little bit tougher cut of meat. So we're gonna cut against the grain right now. All your patterns, your muscle fibers are running this way. So we're gonna cut this way to cut against the grain. That's what that means. So we're just gonna do some nice little slits like that. So we have the ability to have a little tender cut of meat whenever we sear these for our stir fry. Now that we got everything chopped, it's now time to turn this into a stir fry. I'm just gonna take a little bit of butter out, get it going in my hot pan, about a tablespoon. Get this swirling around. So now we're gonna take our veggies. I'm gonna start with my carrots. Just kind of drop these in first. My carrots and my bell peppers, because those are gonna take the longest to kind of soften. So I'm just gonna put these in here for a couple minutes before everything else goes into the pot. You can individually separate these out if you want to. Honestly, it's less cleanup. That's why I only have one bowl. We're just gonna get these cooking for about 2 minutes. Kind of get these softened a little bit. Then once we get these softened, we're gonna throw in our broccoli. I just have some frozen pre-chopped broccoli. Again, and that's something else that will save on time. It's flash frozen at a good time when it's nice and healthy, so you don't have to worry about losing any health in your ingredients with your broccoli. And then I have some mushrooms also that I'm gonna toss in here. And then we'll toss in onions, garlic, jalapenos, let all this cook together. And then we'll take all of this out and then we'll add in the beef. And then we'll combine everything together after that. So as these are sauteing, we're just gonna add a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon. Same thing with the pepper. Kind of your base, most of your seasonings. We're gonna add more, but we're adding that salt right now. So it'll help pull out some of that moisture that's in these carrots and bell peppers, and it'll help them soften a little quicker. Now these have been cooking for a couple minutes. Like I said, we're gonna add in our broccoli, frozen broccoli, about 1.5 cups of frozen broccoli. Add in our mushrooms. Now our onions, garlic, and jalapeno. So we're gonna leave all this in here and cook probably another 2 to 3 minutes. Add the rest of our seasonings. Got a little onion powder that we're gonna put in here, about a teaspoon. About a teaspoon of garlic powder as well. And we're gonna do about 2 teaspoons of red chili flakes. Just another pinch of salt, and a little bit of pepper. While we're still letting this cook, this would be a good time to get your rice started. I already have some rice soaking in some water. Just like the directions say, I'm just gonna put it on the stove top for 15 minutes, add a pinch of salt, tablespoon of butter, let it all mix together, cook, and then it will be ready to go. And then by the time this is done, and by the time I'm done cooking the beef, the rice should be done. And then we'll just make our plates from there. All right, now that we have all of our veggies sauteed, now we have our beef that we cut. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of salt and put it into the bowl. Not too much, because we're gonna add some more seasonings later. I'm just adding some salt and pepper straight to all of this beef that we chopped up. Gonna get a good little toss on all these so you can coat it. Again, we're not trying to get the beef super seasoned right now. We're just adding a little bit, because then we're gonna re-put this in back with the veggies, and then we'll add the rest of our seasonings in. We're gonna just take our beef, lay it in here, get a good sear going. I like to kind of put in one piece at a time. You can chuck it all in at one time, but I kind of like to build a little bit of crust. So you're gonna see me put in a bunch of little strips at a time so they can all lay on the heat evenly. And then when cooking this beef, you just wanna cook for about maybe 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 1 to 2 minutes each side. We don't really want to overcook this beef too much. So we're just getting a light sear, taking it off to the side. Whenever we put it in with the veggies, it's going to continue to cook then. So right now we're just kind of kissing it, probably keeping it more at a medium rare whenever it's getting pulled off. So now that we have all of our beef and our vegetables individually sauteed, we're going to take them and throw them together. So got a little bigger pan now. We have, I'm gonna put my veggies in first. A little stir. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of liquid aminos. And then I got a little bit of soy sauce. We got a little bit of rice wine vinegar. And then we're gonna have a little sriracha. Since we got all this in here going, get a little quick stir. Now to that, we're gonna add this beef. So now we're just gonna get all this incorporated. So now that we got all this incorporated in here, tossed together, we're just gonna let this kind of simmer for another minute. Let all these flavors marry together. And then once our rice is done, we'll individually portion these out, and your spicy beef stir fry will be done. All right, now that our rice is done, our stir fry is together, now it's just the fun part, assembling. Do a half a cup of rice in each bowl. Now it's time to do our veggies. Now we got all this. Got a little bit of juice here at the bottom, so I'm just gonna take a little bit of this juice, pour it over each cup. Not a lot. Just enough to get down there and flavor some of that rice. And just like that, your spicy beef stir fry is complete. Get my fork ready for y'all. We're gonna go ahead and dive into the spicy beef stir fry. We'll get a little bit of everything on this. You need some beef, you need some rice, you need some veggies. Not that much beef. I'm trying to get a TV bite for y'all, but it's not gonna happen because I want it all. Let's get this carrot. There we go. Don't want to talk with a mouthful of food. But I will say, cutting that beef on the against the grain makes it very tender. It's not gonna blow out your palate with spice, but there's enough spice that kind of raises the hair up on the back of my neck. Y'all ain't gonna miss this one.